Hello, 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 warriors. Tina Salinas here from We Are the Voice for the Silence and Afflicted. I am here today with our guest, Hope Wagner, and she is going to touch bases on her situation dealing with family court and CPS corruption. Along with today's guest, I have a special host speaker, Katrina Melbourne. She will just be, aiding with the podcast today. But before we start, I just want to remind people to go to care2.com in order to sign Malachi's Law, the petition I have online in order to protect domestic violence and child abuse victims. The family courts, for some reason, continue to condone abuse and re victimize along with protect the abusers for some reason. Again, care2.com, Malachi's Law. Anybody that's following the RIPS reports, you can continue looking through the pod, or you can continue seeing the podcast on there. But if you can just go to the new We Are the Voice page to follow, unfortunately, our original page was unpublished due to some haters, but whatever, we're still up and kicking and alive. Um, anyways, um, thank you so much, Katrina and Hope, for being a part of the show. I appreciate your time and spreading awareness. People don't realize how important it is to tell their stories and how much it helps. It's definitely beneficial to wake the public up to let them realize what's really going on. Hope, if you want to start off, you're more than welcome to, and then we'll just kind of chime in. At the end of the show, if you want to, you're welcome to give some positive advice or maybe some, constructive feedback, maybe something that you've learned through your journey, still learning, or anything that might be beneficial or educational to help, some parents out there that aren't aware of certain situations.
Yeah, sounds good, Tina. Sounds like a plan. And I'm just making sure Katrina can hear me.
I can.
And so now that we got this all figured out, just from your opening, Tina, I just brings me right back to let's talk about the system. Let's talk about, the corruption in the family court, and that's that's where I think all of our families, our issues are, and the way they treat you, the way they dismiss you, um, and the system that's involved with it. That's the pushing force that goes along with the family court. And
Right.
my own experience, I was thrown into this through the tragedy of the brutal murder of my daughter, and it was my daughter and her husband. They were together for 12 years and married for 6, and they had 3 children, which are my 3 granddaughters. And at the time of the that he murdered her, he had planned her murder. It was planned for months. But now that we know that we're dealing with a genuine psychopath, that was planned since day one. Psychopaths is what they do. They find their next victim, and learned a lot about that, about what psychopaths do, and the history and murders, and we sit here and we talk about domestic violence and, all the red flags. And, people have often asked me, did you recognize anything? And I saw some things, and there was never any physical abuse, but there was a lot of mind games, a lot of mental, psychological stuff. And it really, really took off after the children were born. And my daughter and I were very close. She carries my mother's name, and my daughter also carries my sister's name, who had passed before, right around after she was born. So, there's a deep seated third generation family history here, and this tragedy hit my family. And I got that call that every parent is the worst fear. And, you get that call and say, Ma, I got it from my other daughter. She goes, Ma, Carrie's missing. And I just got a phone call from the police department. The girls are down at the police department. We got to go pick them up.
Right.
And there's that call. Your whole world is different.
And no parent ever wants to
Yeah.
endure, unfortunately.
Yeah. So, just, to just fast forward into all that, it was definitely a lot of things going on with the homicide investigation. He claimed that she committed suicide. The children were in the house that night. They witnessed everything. They've seen everything. We do now know for a fact that he groomed his children to help murder their mother. And he also had them help clean up and cover up to the police. He used his own children. And at the time, the children were 6, 4, and 2. And the ones that it really affected the most was uh, the 6-year-old and the 4-year-old, because they were actually physically partaking in this whole thing. So, um, he murdered her in their home in the middle of the night. He cleaned up everything, threw her body in the dumpster. The children were left home alone while he went to Price Chopper to get cleaning supplies about 3 in the morning. So all this has definitely been confirmed through the 3-week trial, which was pretty gruesome. He had to take the stand. We had to listen to him talk for 5 hours about how much he loved his children, how much he loved his wife. Um, Still never took responsibility for what he did. He, to this day, as he was walking out after he was sentenced, he still claims that she committed suicide. So, and it was a year ago today that he was sentenced to 25 years to life. And this is where the nightmare began. And fighting in another court, which is family court. And dealing with CPS and dealing with not only CPS, but dealing with Children and Family Services and the House of Good Shepherd, which is a non-for-profit that usually is connected to these county agencies. And I just want everybody maybe make a note of that. If you're dealing with an attorney for the children or a CPS worker or whatever, look around and see what non-for-profit agency is connected to that county office, because they usually subcontract out. And that's a danger, because they're the ones that do all the dirty work. The 501(c) people, they're not-for-profit, and they could create a lot of chaos for you. And it's kind of like a protective shield against the county and the county getting sued. And same thing with CPS. They're subcontracted out from separate from the county offices. So I've learned that in this process. The ones who started most of the trouble, got the ball rolling, was the non-for-profit people, which is the children's therapist.
So real quick, Hope, if you don't mind, how did CPS get involved? Did CPS get involved after the charges were pressed against the father, or who initiated the call for CPS, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, in our particular situation, when anybody gets a 911 call, because after the following morning, after he murdered my daughter, he put all the children in their van and he drove to his brother's garage. He is a mechanic. And he drove the kids and him to the garage, and he went into the garage. His brother was at work, and he said, Carrie's no longer with us. And the brother felt compelled to call 911. So the police show up, and the first thing they do in this scenario is they always separate the children from the other parent. If there's children involved, they separate them. So the children were automatically put into a police car and to a secure area. CPS was automatically called. It's an automatic thing. So they try to, separate the children from the other partner. So whether it's a suicide or homicide, they always treat the case homicide. Doesn't matter. If it could have been a suicide, but they didn't know where Carrie was. So we didn't even know if she was just still missing. There was no information at this point. It's just to secure the children. So they went to one police department, and they took him to a different one. So then I got the call, and we all went down to the police department, and I knew my life and their life would never be the same, because there's no way. Carrie was the mother. She would never leave her children. She would never leave her phone. She would always answer her phone. It was just, we knew something was serious. We thought maybe she was hurt somewhere, because she also would go with a friend of hers early in the morning to go running or exercise. But at that point, we didn't even realize that she texted her friend that she wouldn't be showing up this morning. And that was really strange to the friend. But we didn't know any of that till after, the trial started, because it came out in the trial that after he murdered my daughter, he used her thumbprint to unlock her phone and text her friend that we weren't going to be able to run this morning.
Get
So,
out of here. Oh my God. I mean, it
yeah,
wasn't enough that he, had to murder her along with allowing the children to co-conspire at such a young age. We can't even imagine emotionally what those children not only did they go through, but still are dealing with. You know what I mean? Like that is
yeah.
just outrageous. And my greatest sympathy to you and your family. It can only be extended so much, and I know that only means so much, but I really do feel for you and your family, and I hope you get the proper justice.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. What those girls experienced, immediately, there's limited hours where you can get the most information on a homicide investigation. So immediately they started questioning the children. They bring in professional experienced homicide investigators that work specifically with children to get as much information as possible, because it's going to help. It's going to help in the homicide investigation. And the children gave very descriptive things of what they seen, what they told to the police. They described the arguing. And when they described the arguing, what they actually were describing was my daughter fighting for her life. And you know there was four bullets in the shotgun, and she fought for three. And uh he had to recock the gun each time, which gave her time. But he was also bucking her with the buck of the gun. So, and that came out. So these girls were watching this. These girls were screaming and watching and yelling for their mommy, I'm sure. And as my daughter was fighting for her life, she was fighting for her babies. And we
You
just
can't
know.
even imagine what was running yeah, you can't even imagine what was running through her mind. I mean, I know you said there was a lot of verbal abuse that had went on, but I'm pretty sure she, at that last moment of your life being, glimpsed in front of you, probably never would have thought that it gotten this far, especially in front of her babies, and that's probably why she fought so hard, you
Yeah,
know,
she did.
a
Well, the autopsy, the medical examiner, our technology is unbelievable. When you sit through a 3-week trial and you listen to the forensics and the stuff that they do, that what they can come up with to prove almost down to the minute. With lasers and dive teams and looking for the gun. I mean, there's I know it's hard for people maybe to understand, but as the mother, this is my child. Even though she's an adult, she was my child. And you know, there's something in me that says that my daughter had that fight, and she wasn't afraid of him. And that it's important to me as a mother, that she was gonna challenge him. And so, but he, the on the death certificate, it was blunt force trauma to the front of the head, and then a direct gunshot to the back of the head. So he hit her in the front of the face, at the forehead, and she went down. And I could see, as a mother, I was standing right where she took her last breath. I was in her home, and I could see her knocked down because of the butt of the gun, but using the bed to get back up. And when she lifted her head, based on the forensics and the laser, when she lifted her head to get herself back up again for another round fight for him, he shot her directly point blank. And that was her third time getting up to fight him. And if she could have fought him, there was only one more bullet in the chamber, because it was only four bullets. So she fought for three. It was the third bullet that took her life. And so those girls, those babies, were seeing this, and also saw the aftermath. And my oldest granddaughter described what she saw, and it's in the police report. So, as time goes on, you do more research. You're hearing all this stuff. So therefore, first of all, they witnessed the crime. They're victims of the crime. He groomed them for this time because he was telling the oldest one, that mommy's going to get a bullet in her tonight for sure. And my granddaughter responded, "Mommy's not coming home." And um, she's been carrying that whole plan and that whole thing for quite some time, and we learned that through the trial. So, can you imagine at 5 going on 6 years old, your daddy is telling you this stuff, and you can't really piece it all together. You just know in your instincts that this is bad. And holding a secret, he made her carry that secret with I pinky swear I'm not going to tell anybody. And that coercive mind game he was doing to his own daughters. And so that's all been confirmed. And
Yeah, and these manipulators have a very tactful way on, the vocabulary they use, and especially dealing with young children to make it feel as if it's not hurtful, and it's okay, and everything's going to be fine.
yeah,
Because I'm pretty sure even at a young age, if the children had any inkling of the harm it might have caused, they would have too, stepped up and said something, even
yeah,
though
that
they were
came
they were
out.
probably scared.
That came out. My granddaughter, her and her mommy would go roller skating. They would have date night. Her and her, she would take turns with each one of her girls, and this was with her oldest. And they went roller skating with another friend. It was also my daughter's coworker, and she had a little girl. So they would go roller skating. Well, come to find out, through testimony and discovery after the fact, that yeah, my granddaughter tried talking to her little friend and
Mhm.
said that my daddy's going to hurt my mommy, kill my mommy. And that came out, something on that line. And that little girl did go tell her mommy. She did tell her mommy, which just happens to be my daughter's coworker, and my daughter's coworker did mention it to her. So my daughter's response to her was, "Well, this is why I have to leave, because this is the kind of stuff he's doing to the children."
Yeah. Your daughter
And
was a teacher, right? Right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's kind of like my daughter knew he was saying these kind of things, and she just felt like he was being a big dumb baby, grow the f up, that type of thing. She was, she's 32 years old and very independent woman, and young woman. She has a great teaching career. She just got promoted, and life is kicking for her. She just lost 100 pounds. She ran 100 or a 15K race. So instead of, her husband encouraging that and waiting on the sideline for her to finish the race, he was trashing her and accusing her of cheating. And my daughter wasn't doing any of that stuff. She had a team, and she had friends that were running the race with, and she was working full time. But all that came out in the testimony that none of it was true. And
A lot of jealousy going on then,
yeah,
unfortunately.
very insecure, he was very envious of, the relationship she had with her own family, us. I mean, we embraced him too. I mean, this is, the relationship that my daughter chose. They lived together and knew each other 6 years before they decided to get married and have children. So it was like a planned, thought out life decision.
And
And
that's something. I'm sorry, Hope, to interrupt you. That's something. Uh-oh, Katrina, where'd you go? We lost you. That's something some people have to pay attention to prior to getting in. That's one key factor, actually, out of many signs. If you get into a relationship not knowing that it's, of course, it's going to be a narcissist or an abuser, um, that's something to pay attention to. If a man or even a woman that's an abuser is willing to take away from family and friends and seclude that person, that alone should tell you to kind of hightail out of there. But not a lot of people are aware of those situations and think that they're in love, and it becomes overwhelming, and it gets to the point to where feelings and emotions kind of overtake, and we get ourselves in situations where, unfortunately, we don't realize how serious they really are. I don't know what's going on with
yeah,
this, Katrina.
yeah. Well, that's the thing. This particular situation, at the end of the day, at the end of it all said and done, we did get justice for my daughter.
Good.
We finally got justice, and he was sentenced 25 years to life. But uh, now we're done with criminal court. The sentencing judge said to him, through this whole thing, you never ever once showed any remorse or any sincerity or acknowledged you did anything wrong. So, and you're still claiming that she committed suicide. The judge said to him, either you are completely delusional or you don't have a soul in that body. And he made a special note, and it's in the transcripts, that he should be nowhere near children. So here we are. We've gone through all this process, and COVID didn't help none. It really delayed a lot of trial. There was a time the county jail broke out with COVID. It was just a lot of added delay to the stress of things. But here we are at the end of it all. He gets sentenced and he walks away, but now he still has his parental rights in a whole nother court. And that is where this has been absolutely.
Oh, hold on a minute.
No
Wait a
worries.
minute, because I am so like mind boggled right now. It was not enough that he murdered your daughter. And I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what's going on with Miss Katrina. She'll be back maybe.
Yeah, I got her on my phone, but I don't know where she is on the screen.
So anyways, it wasn't bad enough. And then, like I said earlier, with the children having witnessed it, but they did not just mandatory like strip his rights away. So he still technically has just as much right over these kids in jail.
Yeah, in county jail, okay, through this whole time. There was 2 charges on him. The very
I'm
first
back again.
charge was
Anyways, let's
he
continue.
admitted, after the
Sorry.
investigation,
I'm not sure
he
what's going
gave
on.
in some information a little bit. And what he caved in on, he said,
I can't
okay,
hear her.
I went upstairs. I saw my wife there. I saw the gun. I panicked. She committed
I
suicide,
can't hear you.
and I cleaned up. So this is what he was telling the detectives at the initial time. So he caved in. He said, she committed suicide. I panicked. I cleaned everything. I put her body in the dumpster. I threw the gun and everything in the canal.
I still can't hear you.
And hold on, Katrina. I got her. Hold on. Are you there?
Yeah, I can hear you on the phone now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You got to mute your side because I'm hearing you. Okay. So, he admitted that he did all that initially to the detectives. So when that initial thing happens, they're still being led to believe she committed suicide. Okay, they don't have anything different to think of. Now they start
I can't
looking.
hear you again.
Now they start looking. Okay.
I can't hear.
Are you there? Okay.
Okay, hold on one second, guys. Okay, so I don't know what's going on with the audio and the video, Katrina, but why don't you just message her because she's in the middle of talking. So why don't if you have a question or something as far as the muting her voice is concerned, you can just message her, okay? So it's not interrupting her podcast.
I can't hear her talk at all. That's the thing. Should I just get off?
If you feel that if you feel that's beneficial, yeah, I just want Hope to be able to finish her podcast, and there's just like a lot of interruptions right now, unfortunately.
And then I tell her I can't hear her, and then I can hear her, and I can't hear her. So yeah, I don't want to interrupt this. So
yeah, that's on my phone. Can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay. Yeah, because I have you on my phone. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm muting you on the video here, so there's no echoing. Okay, go ahead, Hope. I do apologize.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so when the initial arrest took place, the only arrest that they had him for was because he admitted that he cleaned everything and put her body in a dumpster. And so they went to look for her in the dumpster. The dumpster was already picked up. So for the whole day, she was in a dump truck until she got to the landfill. And that was all planned because he had to know the time that the truck came in the morning or whatever. So he had a certain time limit. And that was all a stall tactic. So, because it goes to the old saying, no body, no crime, right? And so that was all planned because the very first pickup was about 5 in the morning, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning at the dumpster. So he was charged. He was charged with improper disposal of a body right on the spot at that point. He said that he threw the gun because he panicked. He threw it in the river. So he was charged and arraigned and held in county lockup. During that interview, he also said that he left the house and went to the store to get cleaning supplies, but he left the children at home when he went to go do that. So they gave him a neglect docket for family court. So there's the neglect docket for the family court. And then a temporary order of protection was in place. And those are the things that they do in the very beginning. So now he's in county. He didn't make bail, all that kind of stuff. And now the girls, we pick them up at the family court or at the police department. We've been going over to family court, and we meet the attorney for the children.
So real quick, if you don't mind me asking, how long was the order of protection put in place for? Was that like,
as far as I understood it, it was going to be a temporary order of protection under the thing that he left the children alone home to go get cleaning supplies, and they're underage. So it was a temporary thing that I'm aware of, but there was no reason to ever remove it. I mean, it just got worse after that. I mean, it just got worse. So wouldn't it increase the order of protection, not take it away? And that we'll get to that end of that story, but there was an order of protection in place. And so it took, about 48 hours for the homicide detectives to finally, they did find my daughter, and they found her body in a landfill. So it was on one of the last trucks that came in. They did find her body, and this took about 48 hours or so, and they charged him with second-degree murder. Or actually, it was just held right there because it had to go to the medical examiner. So she was pronounced deceased, but they did find her body. Possible homicide. That's all they could do at that time. So now it becomes a charge of improper disposal of a body, and neglect docket in family court for leaving the children home alone, and now a possible homicide suspect. So it's pending the homicide investigation. So there's still an order of protection in place for the children. So from that point on, when they found the body, it took 72 days for the medical examiner to come back and finally make the cause of death homicide. And they charged him with second-degree murder. So in between the first charge and the 72 days later getting the second charge, that's 72 days, life goes on. And we have 3 children that had nothing on, not even shoes on their feet when we picked them up at the police department. Everything happens real fast. You're given depositions. Witnesses are coming in. Detectives are calling you all the time, asking you all kinds of questions. You're trying to figure out, we're all taking turns with the children. They have no clue what's going on other than what they witnessed. And here we are as a family trying to keep everything normal, as if, we didn't know that they saw at the time. We didn't know the details. We didn't know a lot of things. But they were piecing the homicide investigation together. So we're learning every day something more. I'm in contact with the homicide investigators every day. Her body was identified by a tattoo. She had 3 little birdies on a twig on her wrist, and those were her 3 little girls. She used to call them her 3 little birdies. And that's how they identified it was Carrie, because of the damage of the shotgun. So it was a shotgun. And
hey Hope, I don't want to interrupt you, but who did the children go with initially? Did they go with you initially?
No, we all went up to from the police department. The whole family went up to my daughter Tiffany's house.
I'm sorry, where?
So we all went up to her house. My grandson is there. They have a child themselves. She's married and has my grandson. So it's kind of like we were just all going to Aunt Titi's, you know, it wasn't like, you know, we're just trying to be what everything was normal. The girls were running around. They're little. So yeah, so we're just trying to do that. And so uh during this 72-day period, waiting period, before we got the second degree murder charge, we're searching for we're going shopping for
I muted, I still can't hear you.
we're heading for clothes. We're shopping for clothes. We're shopping for, you know, we had to get bedding. We had to get things all set up. So we're trying to do all this as a family. And so finally, we're over at family court, and we're in a side room, and we're at family court. He's in the other room with the judge, his attorney, and his brother's in there. And my family's in another side room, and in comes this man and introduced himself as the attorney for the children. And he was waiting to get called into, you know, the courtroom. But he's in there telling us the story. You know, he heard about us on the news. He saw there was 3 children involved. He came out of retirement to represent these children, and he was going to represent these girls. So I thought, well, that's great. You know, he's going to protect these girls. So he went in. He got called into the courtroom. I guess the scumbag. I call him scumbag. I can't even deal with his name. But he was in there screaming, irate, demanding to know where his children are. The judge is yelling. He has a right to know where they are, where the children been staying, all this other stuff. So when the attorney comes back in to the side room, he's all nerve-wracking. He's trying to catch his breath. You could tell that it's intense in there. He's saying, well, Jason's out of control. Scumbag's out of control. He is out of control, and he's demanding to know where his children are. I need an address. I need to know where they're going to be staying. And I looked at him and I said, well, he's not going to let me take them. That's exactly what I said. He's not going to let me take them.
At this point, Hope, is the order of protection still in place at this point still?
Still in order of protection. Yeah,
Oh,
it was from the
unbelievable.
original. Yeah. So I said, well,
he had a say in that is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I was asking her if it was still in place, because it is.
The whole thing is, I said the same thing too. I guess putting their mother's body in a dumpster isn't enough. I mean, isn't enough, you know? So I was afraid that because he had so much control, that he was going to tell the judge he wants the children to go with his brother. That was my biggest fear, because his brother was in the courtroom with him. And that was my biggest fear. And I said, well, he's not going to let me take him. And I told the attorney for the children, which he didn't call himself attorney for the children. He called himself the guardian. He didn't call himself an attorney. It was something else.
They have different names. Guardian ad litem.
Yeah, they got all kinds of, well, whatever it was. It's not even legal in the state of New York. I found that out. Whoever he was calling himself, but
wow.
It was outdated for like 10 years. He wasn't even, you know, it was something else he was calling himself. But so anyway, that was all my fear. And I says, well, we could use Tiffany's address. Let's see if he goes along with that, because that was the impression I had, is that he had all this authority to decide where the children are going to be. So Tiffany gave him his address or whatever. He went back in, and then he comes back out to us, to the family, and says that he agreed that the girls could stay at the house. Okay. So, okay, now we got a place. Now we're looking for beds and, you know, clothes. Remind you, their home, their house, their stuffed animals, you know, my granddaughter's little Tigger. I mean, all this stuff is at the house. And we can't get in because it's all taped off. It's all taped off. I don't have no information about these girls. And my first instinct was to get them to the pediatrician and, you know, find out who the pediatrician was, because my daughter was mom and she had all that information. Nobody even knew who the pediatrician was, right? So finally, I went over to the house. The detectives were all there. There was an officer on duty 24/7 protecting the taped off house. And I got a hold of the detective and I said, I really need to get these girls into their doctor, their pediatrician. Now, mind you, this is like probably a week after everything. Okay. Why they didn't, I look, you look back and on hindsight, and you don't understand why they didn't get medical attention the first time, right?
Well, did anybody even suggest maybe counseling for these poor kids? I mean, that's pretty
Well,
traumatic, and
it's coming up. Yeah. Well, we're still talking like at the scene. Why didn't CPS or why didn't, somebody contact a nurse or take the girls to the emergency room? They have
Yes.
right.
absolutely no idea what's going on with these girls. Okay. They were just in a dangerous situation, but nobody took the initiative. I did. So I finally figured out, I got their medical information, the name of their doctor. I called up, I said, we got to get these kids in. I explained what happened to their mother. We think that, that he murdered her, the children in the house. I was concerned of any type of sexual abuse. That's my instinct. That's what some of the things of conversations I've had with my daughter over the period of time that kind of gave me, some concern or a thought, right? Some of the things my
I
daughter
mean,
would,
even without
yeah,
yeah, but even
yeah,
without that being said, I mean, Jesus, look what he did right in front of the kids. How could you not think anything but more,
you're right.
traumatic situations that
Right.
could have
And
happened, you know?
It's like if the courts are causing more abuse. They're causing the abuse. The CPS is causing the abuse.
yeah,
It's insane what they're doing to our children.
exactly. Exactly. So now I get to the pediatrician, she does the exam, whatever. Um, we're talking a week or so after the fact. But I just felt she had said that physically there's just nothing that she could make an indication of. But she also said that the girls are definitely in trauma. So even at that time, the girls were in trauma. That came from the pediatrician. And why CPS didn't take action, why nobody takes any action to take them to the emergency room, they have no idea, right? He could have drugged these girls. And in fact, one of the concerns I had is my daughter came to me one time as a young mom and she says, Mom, I'm not liking the fact that he likes to give the girls Benadryl at night to help them sleep. She goes, Did you ever do anything like that with us kids when we were little? I said, No, Carrie, I never did anything like that. That's not what
They
it's
have a
for.
simple thing called what? Melatonin? I mean, come on, geez.
Yeah, and I said, "No, I've never done anything like that before." But I guess it was a regular thing that he would give him enough to really just knock him out, Benadryl. And that was also in the original statement that he would sleep in the girls' room on a regular basis. It was a ritual, he called it.
That's definitely something to worry about. Definitely.
Exactly. Put the pieces of the freaking puzzle together. CPS is supposed to be trained for these signs, right? But did they do anything? No.
The sad
Absolutely
thing is
not.
they know. They know. They're full aware of it. They just choose to turn a blind eye and they allow it. They condone it.
Yeah,
That's pretty much what it
it
comes
must
down
be.
to.
It must
100%
be because
no.
I can't believe nobody took any action on it. Meanwhile, this is my child in the dumpster. I'm trying to figure all this out. This is like my brain is like split everywhere. Um, it's devastating. This is devastating to my whole family. And so, and I was always like the mom of the house. I'm the wife, and I have a son, and he just got married and bought a house, and he's missing work. And then I got my daughter with her husband, and if they don't work, they can't pay their bills. I mean, we have a lot on our plate right now, and we're just doing the best we can. And uh, CPS and these people are already getting the plan in the mix that this is what they're going to do with these kids. That's it.
But it's
What they're
it's gone
going to do
on
with
now
these kids.
for 2 years now that he's had his rights. Correct?
Is what?
He's had his rights for 2 years now, right?
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
anniversary. I mean, just because it's going to hurt. I'm
Uh,
sorry. Yeah.
he has had his parental rights since the day he murdered their mother. I mean, as far as I know, even today he still has them.
But that's coming up. Isn't the anniversary coming up?
It's a year today that he was sentenced. Now, what
What
I've
is
learned,
the hold? I'm sorry,
huh?
Hope. Go ahead. Go ahead. What were you, I was going to say, what is the holdback on them trying to allow this man to continue having these rights? I mean, in my maybe I'm thinking wrong, but like once a parent draws a certain line, especially with murdering the other parent and allowing these children to see it, don't they think that's enough right there? I mean, what is the logic point, the legitimate point that they
Right.
have on keeping this man
And he was also
associated with these children?
associated with abuse as well, on top of that.
Well, the thing of it is that under the color of law, right? We always have to go under the color of law, innocent until proven guilty, and that's supposed to work in both courts. It's supposed to work in criminal and in family court, and you have to prove your case. So, under the color of law, under the Constitution, he's the parent, and he has his. Okay, well, I could buy that. Okay, I get it. We could figure that out, but keep that order of protection in place and come up with something that's not going to entertain the fact you're going to continue the relations with these children. But instead, these caseworkers came up with a care plan to program the girls with Sesame Street videos to have a relationship with an incarcerated parent. This is their whole plan anyway. So I'm already fighting against the grain. They already know what they're going to do. And I got that impression of hostility the minute I spoke up and said, no, you're not going to use Sesame Street videos. Do you know who this monster is? Do you know what he has done? And right out of the gate, I knew I was going to have problems. And sure enough, I did. They eliminated me having any contact with my granddaughters, my husband and I, altogether. It's days after
Well,
we buried their mother. This is just
you
days
spoke
after
up
we
and
buried their
let
mother. I'm sorry.
right, and you let them know that this is highly you shouldn't have to because it's plain as day. You let them know that this is highly inappropriate for dad to continue a relationship because, this is condoning ongoing emotional abuse. I'm sure even to this day these kids probably still can't fathom, and process what actually has happened. Um,
Yeah. Well, we learned through now the color law. Everybody was guessing. Nobody knew what to do. Everybody was guessing. When is it that he is now eligible to have his rights revoked? It's not during the trial. It's not during the arrest and arraignment. It's not during in county lockup. It's not during the trial. When is it? When is it? When can we go over to family court, revoke his rights? Not when he is found guilty by his jurors. Okay.
But wasn't there already a court date for that, Hope? And
So
something happened.
no, legally under the color law, you could challenge his parental rights after the date of his sentencing under law. So when he's sentenced on that sentencing date, which was a year ago today, you could challenge his parental rights. But it doesn't mean you can't protect him from them. But they didn't. They forced him to have relationships. So
right.
you're in sentencing. The judge said to him what he said: "You have no soul in that body. You should be nowhere near children." My daughter gave because that's where the children were staying. My daughter gave a statement, a victim impact statement that said clearly that the children are suffering every night, bedwetting. They can't go to school. They have night screams in the middle of the night. And this is now a year and a half after they witnessed the murder underneath this care plan, forcing them to have relations with this monster. So they ended up suffering an extra year and a half after what they witnessed the murder of their mother because of this care plan. Now they weren't getting any better. They were getting worse. They were going in what they call um,
Progressing.
traumatic
Yeah.
psychosis trauma, which
Yeah.
is the effect in the brain underneath this care plan. So we've had birthday parties. They've gotten a year older. Life is still trying to go forward, but now I have two children that are trapped in this extended trauma psychosis, and now they're coming up on 8 years old, 8 and 7. This is the damage from this care plan. And my anger is that all preventable. That's my anger. And all of it was preventable. I kept fighting. Nobody would return my calls. um, they started this whole witch hunt against me, and the whole county was pissed off at me. Um, I tried to petition the court. They wouldn't allow me to petition the court. They got caught there, and the other judge, I mean, what a mess. And then this judge up and quit in the middle of the case because he got caught. He got caught doing illegal and corrupt things, emailing the attorneys or dealing with ex parte in the middle of the night on a Friday at 10:30, these private sessions, and, meeting with attorneys only. And well, it all came to head. It all came to head that he was doing corrupt, illegal things. And so he decided that he was going to announce his retirement in the middle of the case, which actually what it is, he got caught. So that took place. And then we're back to the care plan. And now there's a new, I wanted charges pressed and all this other stuff. Now there's a new judge.
So wait, did the judge get in trouble or did he just retire?
I have no idea what happened to him. He disappeared in the wind.
Yeah.
That's what they do. And then the attorney for the children, I kept trying to get a hold of. He refused to work with me, call me back. I tried all to prevent all this from going into any more trauma to protect these girls. And while everybody else is cashing in and, I call it blood money, and collecting the checks and forcing these children to have relations with as victims of this crime. So, here we are. And here we are is that I've gone through 2 attorneys that I personally obtained. One was so afraid to take the case. She was white as a ghost. I had to fire her. She wouldn't go up against anybody. And then the second attorney I had that I paid for, he threw me under the bus. He gave him everything I had and did a lot of this crooked stuff, with these emails and keeping me out of the loop. And so...
Hey, can we talk for a second and just briefly go over this about what he did for a living? I don't think we know exactly, or I don't know, but he worked for who again? The murderer?
He had a federal job.
Okay, just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. And, the gun that he bought was at Walmart for $300. It's a hunting gun. So you could get one for $300. You could fill out the forms or whatever, and they give you an answer within a couple days. So, it's just, there was so many layers to this, and just what it's done to the children. It's extended our pain. It's held my family hostage to this murderer. I've talked to so many people. I've gone up the chain of command. I went up to New York State Children and Family Services. They're not going to take any responsibility for they're going to stand by their caseworkers. But somehow or another, through a miracle, in the present court right now with a new judge, after 24 months, back in just before this past holiday, Christmas holiday, it was announced that abuse was founded. It's on record in the court now, 24 months later.
So now, are we hoping that this might be substantial enough to get him for relinquishing his rights, or what is the hopes?
Well, once I found, because it was by chance, I thought to myself, I'm going to give this attorney for the children a call, because that was a high risk. He hung up on me last time I talked to him, and he kind of laughed. Well, he did laugh at me. He didn't he was laughing at me like I was some joke. But I said, for the heck of it, I'm going to call. And sure enough, he told me that abuse was founded, and he knows he's in trouble, because I told him don't go too far, because he's planning on, he's going back in retirement and probably head to Florida with his family and never look back. You know what I mean? He came out of retirement to protect these girls. He didn't do nothing. He collected the money, sat back, and let the system do whatever they wanted to do with these kids. That's exactly what he did. He called his buddy up and called his judge and said, hey, I saw the news. Let me come out of retirement. I'll take care of this one with you like we used to back in the day, right? That's all I could picture him doing. His mentality is different with me now. His mentality is that he knows because abuse was founded. That was a miracle for that to be acknowledged and on record in court. So, okay, what are they going to do now? Well, they're going to give him the option. They're going to give him the option to
And
surrender
wait,
the
so
parental rights.
for most people, they can take rights away, especially, I mean, so quickly when there's really no founded abuse, but just based on false allegations. But yet, he kills your daughter in front of the children, and abuse is founded, and he still has his rights,
He still has
correct?
the option. And that was yesterday. As far as I know, yesterday was family court, and they were going to offer him the option to surrender his parental rights.
But abuse was founded how long? Wait, what? How many weeks ago or months ago?
This was yesterday. They're supposed to have court.
But abuse was founded before that.
Abuse was founded, was finally on record February 10th, and I wasn't allowed
Yeah.
I wasn't allowed to attend that court date either because I wasn't allegedly I'm not a party to the case.
That's what I find just outrageous that he does all this and abuse is founded, yet he still has his rights at the time.
So I think what the most amazing part about it, though, is she's actually the grandparent to these children as well. And it seems as if she's the only one that kind of stepped forward to figure out what's the best interest for these kids. And they're not giving her the opportunity to express that or even have a relationship with these kids. Is that what I'm gathering from you, Hope?
Yeah, they had to get my husband and I. Well, when this first happened, just days after we buried our daughter, it was a celebration of life, and it was just days after that. We had our celebration of life October 11th and 12th. And then, and the whole family was there. We had family from out of town. It was definitely a celebration for her, and her children were there. And it was just days after that. It was on the 23rd, around the 23rd of October. We get a phone call from the therapist if my husband and I could come into the office. They'd like to talk with us. So we went to this meeting. And during that meeting, there was just a CPS worker and the therapist. My husband said there was another woman there, but I can't see that. He said there was. And they basically just said you can no longer see the children.
No
And
reason, and if so, why? Just
I said, why, what's going on? We thought there was you called this meeting. We thought there was like an emergency or something. And she said because it was reported through your granddaughter's therapy session that you told her that mommy is dead and daddy killed her with a gun. And since you said that to her, she has regressed. And then they started just attacking me. Did you say that to her? And interrogating me. And I
do they
said,
not
no.
know?
Yeah.
But do they not know that and understand that these children witnessed this? So let's say, for instance, that was said, okay, and I'm not accusing you of saying that at all, but let's just say, for instance, it was said. Would it even matter at this point? The children basically witnessed. They did. I shouldn't say basically. They did. They witnessed it. The evidence is real and it's there. What have they done so far to protect these children within that matter happening? Let alone just say assumption on. We know it's manipulation. They're manipulating the situation to get the protective parents, which is you and your husband, out of the situation, and that happens way too often.
Yeah, and the other point on that, very good point you're saying, Tina, because the other side of that too, just as well, even if I did say that, wasn't it the truth? And what's wrong with the truth? I mean, even in our very first meeting with this team, the family met with this team 3 times, 3 or 4 times, making major decisions for these children. The very first meeting we had, it was a conversation of how or when we were going to tell the children what happened.
Well,
And it
that's
was
not up to them. That should not be ever up to them.
it was
That's up to you
directed,
guys.
it was advised to us, the sooner we tell them, the better. And if you do tell them, use appropriate age language and your faith.
By who?
All,
By
all
CPS
makes
or the
sense.
therapist? Who told
That
you?
was said by the team leader, which was the supervisor of the team.
Through CPS.
Yeah.
Like they know that they know anything about mental health and children
Yeah,
development. Yeah.
yeah. So, we decided then that when we do say it, we didn't know what time, when, because we had a birthday party coming up for the oldest granddaughter and another one coming up for the baby. She was going to be 3. So it's like, when we're going to say. So right now, everybody, we're just going along with the idea, not knowing what the girl's actually seen. Okay, you got to kind of think this in your mind. We don't have that information yet, right? From the detectives. We're just living life like mommy and daddy are on a little vacation and we're all here. Meanwhile, I didn't even realize, nobody even realized what they saw, what they have endured and hanging on to. We're just loving them, embracing them. They know something's wrong. They know something's going on. We don't have all the information. We're just trying to make things safe for them. And so we were going to all say to them that it was all agreed upon in front of the CPS and the caseworkers that when the time was right, we were going to tell them that mommy's an angel in heaven and daddy's in big boy timeout. And
Sounds pretty appropriate to me.
Yeah. And because, of our faith and stuff. And that's how we were going to just let it go. And the more information we get and we understand, we're going to include you with, right? And then we're going to have birthday parties and you're going to sleep over grandma and grandpa's and we're going to still do things of the norm, right? So somehow or another, we got called in right after we buried their mother. They kind of pieced it together that we're putting mommy to rest and she had to be cremated. So we had a tree planting and we put special things in with the tree to grow and we got our necklaces on with her ashes. It was very ceremonial, the girls knew mommy was an angel in heaven. We released some balloons and we were looking for heart-shaped clouds in the sky, and it was just a very intimate time with the granddaughters. And a couple of days later, we get this phone call, and my husband and I are no longer allowed to have any access to the children because they accused me of saying that to my granddaughter.
Do you know who told them that?
Huh?
Do you know who told them that about you saying that to the children? Not that it really matters, but
we never talked about it because we all agree that mommy's an angel in heaven and daddy's in big boy timeout. That was all.
This sounds like something that CPS has done this many a times, where CPS will get the children into a room and back them in the corner, and they actually themselves will manipulate a situation and construct something up in order to peg these protective parents to get them out of their life. That's what I was saying earlier, which is unfortunate and sad because these kids now more than ever need their grandparents there for them.
Well, that's what my husband was doing and slamming his fist on the table and how dare you? And he says, do you realize what you're doing? They just lost their whole world. You're going to take their grandma and grandpa away from them? What is wrong with you people? I mean, he was just like, I had to stop him. It was insane. It was just like, you got the shock of your own daughter and everything that she went through, just brand new to you. We just buried her, and now you're going to take away their grandma and grandpa. They knew me. Carrie would teach her girls that they knew that, because Carrie would say, "This is my mommy." And, my little granddaughter would say, no, that's my grandma. Or, they knew I was their mommy's mommy. So they knew
my daughter does that.
So they know I'm a safe person. Grandpa's safe. And the second granddaughter is just in love with her grandpa. And you just took that all, they just lost their whole world.
So it's like you guys are grieving all over again. I mean, you didn't get to finish grieving the first incident, and now here we go where they are involving themselves, knowing what's right. Well, they think what's right and best for the children.
Yeah.
Did they ever provide any proof besides this assumption and word of mouth that this ever even happened? Did they give you that opportunity?
Well, after this happened, we were leaving the meeting and I was begging them. My husband and I were pleading, please do anything. I don't care. Just don't sever completely. Maybe we could do supervised visits, I said, visitation or supervised visits, here. I was just throwing ideas out and they were going to eventually get back to me and I never heard anything. I called the 1-800 number hotline because remember, this team had no clue what was happening to these girls. My family knew. We knew they were in the house the night because I asked the team, I said, do you guys really know what happened here? Every single one of them, there was about 8 women in that room and nobody knew what happened to these girls, but they're making these decisions. It's shocking. So, and I think this was a regular way they ran the show out here because, at the end of the day, if this is how you're treating children, then good chances are the majority of the children who were ever in some kind of a trauma situation or whatever, they went through the foster system. You guys just collected the funds and moved on.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't care about the children, and
Exactly.
this is a clear proof of it. Clear proof of it.
They take this as if, and it's really sad, okay, because they don't understand the depth and severity of this mentally for these children. They're just growing. They don't know anything about life yet, and to experience something so traumatic and not get the proper attention through the proper channeling with relationships amongst, whether grandparents, siblings, what have you, that alone right there is detrimental to them. And these people take it as if it's a little cut, it's a little boo boo, it's okay, it'll go away. No, this is something that's going to live with them for the rest of their life. It's going to change them of who they were or who they were supposed to be,
I think
for
they know.
not being handled.
I don't think they're blinded to it. I mean, I really think they have to know what they're doing. I just don't know how they sleep at night. Not, I'm not saying all, but I
Oh,
mean,
you're talking about the caseworkers. Oh, okay. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Because I mean,
Children, yeah. Children
it's
are
happening
in a
too
state of
often.
shock. Yeah, they're in a
Yeah, they're
state of
taking so many
psychosis.
children from safe, loving parents, and they're placing them with in unsafe situations, foster care, the unsafe parent, and it's not gender. It's just the unsafe parent and just or unsafe place, and they're leaving the children that are in dangerous situations with the parent, and it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, they started ripping their everything they knew world apart after that. And and to me that's already a premeditated care plan. Let's get everybody that's close to these kids away and so that we could force them with Sesame Street videos and design them whether they were going into foster care or
And
wherever they
that's
were going to place them.
manipulation.
Yeah, nothing was
Yeah,
permanent. Nothing. It was just, they were winging it. So of course I'm like, I want to talk to a supervisor. I go up the chain of command. I'm threatened all the way. Told that you could come in for a meeting. We'll talk about it. We'll teach you what the law is all about. I mean, these people were really, really shrewd and threatening from day one. So the fight began, and we started visiting with the children. They started putting the children. They started berating my granddaughter, uh, referring to her as lying. They were trying to, with intention, they were severing our relationship right in front of her. They were accusing her of lying to their grandma. And I got down on my knees to my oldest granddaughter. I'll never forget this because I have to bring them home because I promised her. And I told her, we have to be brave. We have to be brave. And I trust you. And you trust me. We're in each other's hearts. And we got to be brave. And grandma and grandpa are going to figure this all out.
and
And
I
I
think
got
for
a
everything.
picture. I got a picture that she drew me. And it was exactly a picture of her being suppressed because in the tummy area is flowers and hearts, which is grandma and her mommy were flower and hearts, and over the top of that is a dark brown crayon, and then her face was crying in one eye and a sad face. And I knew my granddaughter was messaging me. That was her messaging that they're not allowing me to talk. They're suppressing her, and I knew it. You don't have to have a degree to see this. And if you're if you're into understanding children and you're a parent, you don't they hang up smiley faces and rainbows and sunshines on grandma and grandpa's refrigerator. And now I get a picture from my granddaughter. Never seen anything like it. And you know, I told her my last words to her, and then they swooped them away. Uh, we have to be brave. So I believe part of her psychosis still is she's waiting for grandma and to say, now you could be you. Now you could tell these people to get the. She'll never say the F word. I would never teach her that, but in her own way, stay away from me. She
Well,
went.
she
She
has
was,
very important people taken from her all at one time. Her
yeah,
mother,
her
her
their
grandparents,
whole world.
and
Yeah, so it is.
their dad too.
It's documented. It's documented that they live in fear every day. They don't feel safe where they are. They don't feel safe under the care plan. They're searching for grandma because that's who they knew their mommy directed us to. It's a different relationship. That's all. Uh, but it's a very important relationship. It's a very important bond, and she has her aunt Titi, right? But and then my son, Uncle Rob, and they have them, but it's different type of relationship. It's auntie and
Completely
uncle.
different. Yeah, completely different type.
So so where are we
And
today?
hope to, and through your, I mean, if they can't see even with through the last response that you had to have with your grandkids, that true love and nothing but complete reassurance to them is all you're trying to establish. I don't know, what else they need, and I commend you for that because not a lot of people in those situations can actually come out verbally without anger and fear inside, not knowing what the future holds, for their relationship with their siblings or their kin. So I definitely commend you for being able to be the responsible one to, leave the kids on a note of strength, and encouragement.
Yeah.
Hey, Hope, I want to ask you one thing real quick. I'm not sure how long this goes on for, Tina, but this is pretty important. I have found in a lot of cases is that they are bringing up mental health, just pulling it out of anywhere, and they're using it against a lot of women. What I see, and they're just it's false allegations, and they're not. It comes from officials that have absolutely no mental health training, lawyers, CPS especially, and it's just a false allegation. So I want to ask Hope, have you had any experience with that?
Yeah. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yep,
Okay.
you're fine.
I think I lost Katrina. But yeah. I have just recently. Um, I was told by uh, sorry. I was told by the district attorney he had called me because I had really, really caused a lot of issues. Okay, I've been up to the chain of
I
command,
can't hear you.
and you know, I definitely have rattled some cages, and every avenue I turned, the door was slammed in my face, or I was mocked, or I was laughed at, or I was belittled, or and I'm even talking about people in the Purple Ribbon campaign, okay, for domestic violence. Everywhere I turned, nobody wanted to step up and ask questions about these girls. So there's a big problem here, and my whole thing was, um, why all the resistance? What's with all the resistance? I'm just their grandmother wanting to be heard. Nobody wants to step up to the plate and challenge the system. So with me doing so and everything I've been going through, and
Exactly.
there's so much more. There's layer after layer. There's a lot of stuff we can probably get into the meat of things and keep going on it and learn from it, right? But at the end of the day, I'm challenging the authorities. I'm exposing the corruption. There was intentional child abuse happening to these kids. Nobody can answer my question. Who removed the order of protection and why would anybody think about doing that? What is the
They
motive?
violated their own, yeah, they violated a court order by removing it. I mean,
Who
It
removes it?
blows my mind. Yeah, like, who would even do that? And it's crazy that there's no court did you suggest, any court documentations to provide that information, or are they just refusing to give it to you?
I'm refused to get everything because I am not a party. So I decided, well, you know what? I'm going to represent myself. So heck with everybody. So let's see if I could hear her on my phone. I can't hear her.
From what I know, only a judge can remove that.
Okay. So
Can you hear me?
I could hear you now.
You just went out again. I think you muted me.
No,
I
Katrina, she's fine. I don't know what's going on.
I can hear her now.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, only a judge can do that. From what I know, remove the order of protection.
Well, it has
No
to
one
be
else.
the present judge then, because I don't know. Unless the judge who got up and left quickly and retired, took everything he decided to do and shredded it. Who knows? I can't even get transcripts. I try to get transcripts of the old court, and there's not. My attorney at the time found somebody that's out of retirement or in retirement. He says, "Well, you got $150. I can get your transcripts. There's somebody that can type them up for you." So they're using people out in retirement who used to be a stenographer or whatever to type up transcripts if you request them. So there's a lot of people coming out of retirement making this side money. And, they're making this side money and they're supposed to be retired. So there's no way you could hold them accountable. Then they up and disappear. Nobody knows nothing. They've made a few bucks and they're off to Florida. It's just so corrupt that you can't even turn back the clock of time and go back and get these transcripts. They don't exist. And it's amazing. And I think it's all starting to collapse here where I live. It's starting to collapse. It's starting to get exposed. And I think people are panicking and the environment is very hostile. It's very hostile. Um, so, longer story short, let's get to the meat of it. I went up through the chain of command. It took me almost a full year. I got back to my district attorney. My district attorney was looking into it. I said, I don't know what the hell's going on here, but everybody's pissed off at me, including the judge. We're not even allowed to see the children. So the district attorney looked into it, was able to get us a meeting with the county executive. The county executive, I went in there and I said, something's terribly wrong here. The county executive looked into it. I got a phone call from the county executive office. They told me if I sign this contract, I'll be hugging my grandchildren by Friday. I looked at this contract and it was like a behavior modification. So I said, I'm not signing this. And that behavior modification, some of the stuff that was on it is like, I can't hug my children a certain period of time, stupid stuff like I can't take pictures. They were already putting in motion the alienation, the distancing, the severing of the ties, because now they wanted to put a stipulation on me seeing the children and giving me a visit. And I said, I'm not signing it. So that didn't go well either. So it's abuse of power. Katrina talks about the mental health capacity. Through my fight, I got up to the top, and now abuse was founded, and now I'm up against the other side, which is the criminal side, and they're thinking I'm going to go along with the idea. They got away with it so long. It was, to me, there's a crime here. And how do you get a crime? Well, I just sat through a 3-week trial. I've been talking to homicide detectives for 2 years. You learn some things. And the bottom line is you have to have criminal intent. This wasn't like a work ethic or personnel ethic or, you didn't behave well on the job. These were thought out, coercive, planned decisions. And they were very detrimental to my family. and to the children and to me. So in my mind, I have the crime, and there was intent. It was done intentionally. Nobody stopped. Nobody pulled the reins back, and they intentionally forced these children to be re-victimized and my family. So now I want criminal charges. So I'm rattling the
Awesome.
cages of criminal charges, and I'm pissing a lot of people off. And one of them is the district attorney, very upset with me, just called me last week after, me calling him 25 times, requesting him to return my call. I've called my senator, Senator Griffo. He's up there and asking him. I've written emails. I've talked to a whole bunch of people. And my district attorney calls me last week and says, I had him on speakerphone and started screaming at me. I've told you over and over again, I have no jurisdiction. This is a family court issue. This has to do with family court. And I think you have some mental health issues. You need to get a psychological evaluation.
Oh,
And
not
my
surprised.
husband,
Jeez.
unbelievable. You know, so, you
So this
know,
seems like the part in the chapter of the story of where you're supposed to sit down and bow down gracefully and just kind of be silenced, like
yeah,
everybody else.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And this is after months of the hostility that I've dealt with. Months. So, at the end of the day, that's the silver bullet. Any advocate, I've learned it through a lot of people that I've been talking with, they call it, oh, the silver bullet. So, what is the silver bullet? The silver bullet is when you got them by the kahunas and they're going to say, oh, you're mentally ill. That's the silver bullet.
I'll clarify real quick. I don't know that Hope. I know Hope pretty well. We've spoken a lot, and she is an amazing, not only just an amazing person and mother and woman all around, but her mental health is very attacked. I'm nationally certified mental health specialist, and for anyone to bring up any mental health issues, Hope is very strong and solid and intact and has no issues at all. And this is just it's getting ridiculous.
It is. And you know something too, and even mental health, okay? Mental health is supposed to be something we all talk about. And I can branch off on a whole new show talking about mental health, and it's so important to me because when we talk about children, there's some really strong statistics that I'm looking into with trauma informed care that specifies that this is a different arena. Trauma is a different arena than the norm, and
Right.
especially if they witness or they're part of a horrific crime. And it's a different form of therapy, a different form of an approach.
Right.
And nobody here in the county was qualified for our case. And nobody was qualified with trauma informed care. Nobody called us a nurse, a doctor. Nothing was available to our family. So, or these not let's just, I'm not even talking about the adults. We'll figure it out. I'm talking about these children, and this is happening way before the murder of my daughter. And children are in trauma before they even hit the steps of CPS.
A lot of
And
mishandling of the case. Yeah,
yeah,
most definitely. Most
yeah.
definitely. And
So
you're always pegged whenever you're a protective parent or grandparent. You're always pegged for crazy because you're out there doing exactly what they don't want you to do. We spoke about this before where if you're standing against what they are having us submit to, you are a threat right off the bat. And they will do anything in their power to try to snatch or tarnish or relinquish any relationship whatsoever because that's just their motive. There's no even trying to understand why or how come or where did this come from because it came from left field the majority of the time. You've exhausted all your resources on trying to help these kids, from the very beginning. And, all they've done was stomp on you. There's so many different parts of this story where it's just like, holy wow, you would just think, wait a minute, there's a hole here, there's a hole there. And it's not caused because of the grandparents, it's caused of mishandling of the case. Most definitely from the people they're supposed to be handling it in a proper manner. And like you said, it's not for the adults, it is definitely for the children because they are the one that endured. We will endure our emotions, of course. We could put our big girl panties or big boy panties on, or draws, whatever you want to call them for guys. Sorry,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, and move on about our day. But when we're talking about innocent babies, children, teens, you know, even in young adult life, these are children that are being adapt. They're trying to adapt to their environment. You know, it turns into a survival of the fittest mode, and you know, your grandkids unfortunately are shell shocked right now. They are put into you know, this state of mind frame where they're stuck because the appropriate people that were supposed to be there to help them carry through this are being put at such a distance. It's causing nothing but more drama,
yeah,
trauma.
more,
Excuse me.
more, yeah, and it's in the proofs in the package. The children are still suffering, so they're not thriving, and
And
that
where
is
does CPS come into place with that? You know, kind of questions that. You know, where do they come into play when if they care so much about abuse? After all, that's supposedly what they stand for, even though we know the total opposite. What do they say about, you know, the changes with these kids and having to grow up and still deal with the bedwetting and confusion and
they have this perception that they're resilient. They're going to just move through it. You know, it's almost like it's a process. They're going to pull through it or whatever. They're going to bounce back. And of course, that's what you're hoping to. But, you know, come on, people. We're going on 2 years. They're not thriving. They're bedwetting. They're definitely going to have future issues with anxiety and learning disabilities. And I don't even know. I mean, you look into Stockholm syndrome and you look into the effect of trauma on a brain.
And addiction. Actually, I read
Yeah,
research today about addiction, and they're highly. I mean, unfortunately, children that have a lot of trauma, any trauma actually, is a very high risk for addiction.
yeah, and also suicide. The youngest is age 8. If you can't process them through, and it's so funny because, well, it's not funny. I'm not funny, haha, like that, but just to give you a briefing, when it comes to a point in your time where you have to give a victim impact statement, you don't have to, it's an option. And you have to write it out. And before you could even read it, it has to be approved by the court. And, you know, if you're going to give a victim impact statement, only could be 1 page long and in the front. And so I had spent this time trying to figure out how I'm going to write this. I never want to see him. I'd never want him to see my pain. That was my thing. I didn't want to do it like a eulogy, like I was given a ceremonial thing about how great my daughter was. We had our private service with family and friends. He wasn't going to get that from me. And I'm trying to figure out how am I going to put this victim impact statement. And so during my victim impact statement, I had looked him directly in the eye and I knew he was evil. And I had said to him that this was 12 years in the making. This was done. And you have been putting a wedge between my family and my daughter for a long time. And before I wrote all that, I contacted uh, a therapist that works inside the prison in the rehabilitation end of it. And what he does, he's a psychiatrist that works in the state prison to work with these guys for rehabilitation to see if they're eligible for parole. And that was his job. If he felt they were eligible for parole, he would put them on the list to go in front of the parole board. And so I sought one of these guys out and I was talking to him because I wasn't really sure how I was going to write this victim impact. I mean, is it even worth my time? I mean, he's took up enough of my life. He's devastated me. Do I even make an impact statement? Is it going to impact him at all? Is it going to make any sense or what? You know, it was a personal choice I had to do because I've seen a lot of other mothers and family members give victim impact statement that scream, pound their, you know, they have their own way. Everybody has their own way. And I just didn't want to give him any satisfaction of my time. And he took enough. And so I talked to him and he says, you want to know what happens? He goes, how we determine on rehabilitation of some of these criminals who commit murder. He says, what happens is when we get them, it's almost as if they're locked in a psychosis, a deep psychosis. And that deep psychosis is in denial that that what happened is the way it happened. And some are in such denial that, like the murder of my daughter, he, to the very end, hangs on to the fact that she committed suicide, even with all the evidence and the forensics. And he sat through the whole trial, 3 weeks. He took the stand for 5 hours. I mean, there's an abundance. I mean, the jury didn't even take an hour, and they already had him guilty on all counts. Still in this frame of mind that she committed suicide. Well, the psychologist said to me, he said, that's what we do on the inside. We meet with, he goes, I don't know if I'll see the murder of your daughter, but he'll be there. I'll have the file. And we try to break down the psychosis, even if it's to see if it's even a possibility. And we see if they're just full of it or manipulating the system or if it's genuine. So there's a long process in that. And they're mandated to go through this therapy. And he goes, I'll give you an example. This John Doe, he was one of my clients, and he show up, and here I have all the transcripts of the trial. I have the medical records from the medical examiner, and this guy took a hammer to his wife's head, and it was something like 62 times he hit her in the head with a hammer. And it's all documented. And now here's this guy, life in prison. He has to show up to his therapy session. And, he's trying to get this guy to admit, yeah, I did this to my wife. And so he brought the topic up or whatever to this John Doe guy. And he says, I admit that I hurt my wife. I admit that, what I did was wrong, blah, blah, blah. He's up for parole. And so the psychologist asked him, he says, are you aware how many times you hit your wife with the hammer? He goes, I only hit her once and she went down. He goes, are you sure you only hit her once? And actually, he denied that he even hit her more than once. He hit her like 60 some odd times. So the psychologist reviews his record and sees his answers, and he is in psychosis he may never come out of. So even the perpetrator goes into this psychosis and becomes these manipulators. And this inside the prisons for rehabilitation, they're supposed to be keyed on to that. And this particular guy, he would not ever be eligible for parole because he can't admit what he's done. So I don't
It's not
know
surprising.
what?
Yeah, it's not surprising. I mean, our own judges can't recognize it while they're in the courts dealing with, victims and abusers.
Right.
So it definitely, I highly doubt in the prison system they're paying close attention as they're stating. I know we're running out of time. I have another podcast coming up that I know you guys are going to be a part of for events. So, was there anything before we close out, Hope, that you wanted to talk about as far as maybe some positive?
Yeah, definitely one very, very important thing. If I can get anything out there to any young families, and this is really important, a lot of this could have been prevented. You young parents with children, and none of us did. I had children. I always thought if something happened to me, mom and dad would take my kids and raise them, right? Or my family. Untrue, not real. If you have young children, it could be a car accident, it could be anything, it could happen to anybody. It doesn't have to be a murder. You have children, get together with an attorney, draw up a power of an attorney with somebody that you trust. Because you can just go get in a car accident and your children are wrapped in the system. And even though you have loving grandparents or aunts and uncles, they're going to look at the money. They're going to look at the money in it. And just take those steps, secure your family, secure your children, and do some legal paperwork. It doesn't take very long. It doesn't cost very much. Find a way to do it. You can probably do it even free. Find your way, and get legal documentation to protect your children, because once they're in the system, they could be gone forever. And I really want to enforce and pass that message on.
That's really a good advice.
Thank you. Thank you guys for listening.
No problem, Hope. I appreciate a lot. Hold on. I don't know if it's me or somebody else that's okay. There we go. I apologize. Thank you so much, Hope, for sharing your story. And I would really hope maybe sometime in the future that if you would like to come on for an update, just to keep us posted with your journey, how it has hopefully turned for the better. You are an amazing grandparent. You're doing everything in your power. You seemed as if you'd raised your daughter right, and just unfortunate circumstances had came your way. But dealing with that, you're the blessing to the grandkids in order to fight and seek justice. And it seems like you're doing everything in your power to do just that. And again, I commend you so much for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. They need you. It doesn't matter the amount of other family that's out there. The grandparents mean a lot, and people fail to realize that that is a key factor of holding our families together is our grandparents. So I do thank you so much. Before I close out, Katrina, was there anything else that you wanted to say real quick before we close out?
No, I just think, I just want to say, Hope, you're doing exactly, you're fighting for your daughter, and I know that she's smiling because of that.
Thank you.
And you're so strong, and I know it gets tiring. We've been there, but you're a true fighter, and you're an amazing mom. And I told you before, if you could adopt me, that'd be great.
Oh, don't get me crying, right? We're all gonna sit here crying, right? And this is recorded.
That's okay. Emotions are good. We're human. Now, come on. We got to have these emotions, right?
Yeah, they're real. Definitely real.
You would just be, if it were me, if I was your daughter, I just know that's how I would be feeling, and I think that I truly believe that. So.
Oh, thank you, Katrina. Thank you.
Yeah.
You've been there
Oh,
for
bless
me,
your
and
heart,
I'm grateful
Katrina.
for that. We're warriors, right? We're warriors. We gotta.
Amen to that. We're not victims.
Amen.
We're not.
warriors.
We're
We're not going
warriors.
down without a fight. We're gonna straighten this out. So.
That's right. And just to piggyback real quick before we close off on what you said earlier, this is the generation and the time. And I know a lot of people are realizing it. It's the season that we're living in. People, if you're going to stand for something, stand for something. You see it scrolling at the bottom of the screen right there. Because if you don't, guess what? You're really living for nothing at all. There's a lot going on in this world, and we're going to stand up for the right thing. We're going to stand up for something actually that's going to do just by our children, because after all, they need us. We are their voice. And there's so many children out there that are being silenced. There's so many parents out there that are being silenced. I know moving forward, before I clock off, our next podcast is going to be about the recent events that are coming up, guys. Warm weather is coming out. Our two beautiful women that are right here will be joining us as well. So stay tuned for that. And we're going to take a break for a little bit and then hop on with a couple other women. Thank you so much, guys, for being there.
Awesome.
Guys, thank you. Thank you. Please make sure to go to care2.com, sign Malachi's Law, which is designated and designed specifically to protect domestic violence and child abuse victims. I appreciate everybody so much. I love you all. You're definitely warriors. Keep up the fight, keep up the strength, and continue raising awareness. Continue telling your stories, guys. The more we tell our stories, the more people wake up. God bless. Have a good night. We'll see you a little bit later. Tina Salinas from We Are the Voice from the Silence and Afflicted. Thanks.
Thanks, Tina. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.